For those who are new Muslims or who have not read the Quran, I wanted to go through 12 brief points about the Quran before you delve into that. Now, the first major point I wanted to talk about was the fact that there's a lot of people out there who will try to force you to read an Arabic Quran. Not physically force you, but keep telling you you can only read it in Arabic because that's the revealed language, etc. Unfortunately, there's a lot of Muslims all around the world who will only read the Arabic Quran, and most of them don't understand what they're even reading. They're just reading it like a parrot. Now, I know numerous Arab people, and a lot of them say that they don't even understand the Arabic of the Quran unless they had gone and formally learned the Arabic of the Quran itself. The modern Arabic is very different for them, and it's very difficult for them to actually understand the older Arabic of the Quran from over 1400 years ago. Now, there's just a few minor points that I wanted to go through as well. The Quran is divided up just like any other book. The Bible has its book titles, but then there's the chapter, and then basically the sentences within it have their own numbers too. So for example, James 3:10, that has the name of the book, the chapter, and then the subdivision under that as well. The Quran doesn't divide it as much there. The Quran has the surahs, which are the chapters, and then the ayats, which are like these subdivisions as well. So when one does go look at the Arabic itself, you'll notice that the number of the ayat is at the end of the actual sentence or section itself. It's not at the beginning like you would see in English. So it might confuse you a bit when you're trying to first learn to read the Arabic and try to navigate the Quran. Now, another thing you should know is that there's no punctuation in Arabic. So all throughout the Quran, you're not going to see periods or colon, semicolon, anything like that. That's more modern, taken from English into more modern Arabic. What you will see is a lot of wa, which is like and, so that might be like a comma, or other things that let you know that this is the end of a thought and a new thought has begun. Now, unfortunately, with a lot of translations of the Quran, I don't think a lot of people are thinking of the English reader themselves, and they're going with a lot more of a literal translation. So when they do have these divisions within the ayats, you see some of the sentences in English starting with and. Now, for an English speaker, that would be very strange. You'd never have something like that in formal English. But they have taken it directly from the Arabic and put it into the English. So in that sense, you have to judge the Quran not based on your English standards, rather based on the way that the people have translated the Quran itself. Now, all the chapters of the Quran, they also start with Bismillah, which is in the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful. And that is considered part of the chapter itself, and it's only one of the 114 chapters that do not have this. So that's just something that you'll see that's often repeated through the Quran. And what you will notice is that if you have a side-by-side translation with the Arabic and the English, Arabic is read from the right to the left, and obviously English is left to right. So sometimes when they're doing a translation, they're doing it based off of the Arabic, not based off of the English reader. So they'll have the Arabic text, and they'll be going from right, as in like the back for us, from the back of the book to the front. So that'll be the start from the back to the front. So in the same way, they'll put the translation next to the Arabic as opposed to the Arabic next to the English. So the English would also start from the back of the book to the front of the book as well. So sometimes you'll get translations that are like that. That's just the way it is, and you'll have to just navigate it that way. It'll make a lot more sense, obviously, if you're following the order that it's going in. One thing you do have to bear in mind is a lot of the time, if you have a background with the Bible or anything like that, a lot of people don't have any idea what's going on with the translations, anything like that at all. They're just dealing with the English text itself. So you do have to realize that when people are translating a text, they have this artistic license that allows them the ability to make it a lot easier for the reader itself. So if there's an example, like in the Quran is talking about the good or bad deeds that someone is doing, right down to an atom's weight. That's the translation they use nowadays. And most of the translations you'll see will say atom, but obviously 1400 years ago, that's not the word they would be using. They would not be using the word atom. They would be using something that's for like a very, very, very small weight, a very small thing. So you have to understand that translations are done for the understanding of the reader. So sometimes it's not exactly word for word. And if it was word for word, you also wouldn't understand many of the sentences in general, because languages have a lot that is implied as well. So whatever the translator has done to help you better understand it, isn't them altering the Quran to make the translation better, but rather it's for your mind so that you do understand it. Another thing you might notice as you go through the Quran is there's a lot of repetition of certain concepts or certain stories. The one thing you'll notice a lot is the stories related to Prophet Moses. There's a lot of reiteration of those stories, but that's to drill the points that the Quran is trying to make into your mind. It's not just simply going for the sake of repetition. Another thing you must consider is that the Quran must be taken as a whole. You must look at all of it when you are looking at anything. You shouldn't be looking at one specific part and then extracting something from that. So earlier on in the Quran, you might see a certain verse, and then later on, you see a verse that elaborates on it a bit more. So you should be reading the whole thing and not just jumping to conclusions right away. And that goes the same for any other book that's out there. And this will also relate to the keeping of context. So when you are reading something, many people know this, but they don't actually implement it. So a lot of people will look at something, they'll look at one verse and say, this is exactly what it means, but they fail to look at the greater picture. Unfortunately, without reading the whole Quran, you're not taking that into context. So yes, it could give you context by looking a few verses before, a few after, but obviously it's much better that you look at the entire Quran to see what it's saying before you look and judge a certain verse and try to impose your beliefs on that, or say the Quran has this belief. So for example, this verse could be something that is meant in general, or it could be very specific, or it's something that could be a holistic principle that you're to extract from the Quran, or based on a certain time, or based on a certain place, or it might not be based on a certain time and place and is for everyone. But you'll only come to understand that as you get more into your Quranic studies, and once again, actually looking at the entire Quran as a whole. So for example, looking at my hand, it gives you an idea of who I am. It gives you an idea that I am a person. It gives you an idea that my skin is white, and that's about all it can pretty much tell you. What it can't tell you is what my beliefs are. What it can't tell you is what my job is. What it can't tell you is almost anything else about me. You can only see this one part, and from that part, you can extract a little bit of information, but as a whole, you can't take that one part and say you know everything about the whole based on that. And the last point I wanted to point out about the Quran is the fact that it's not the be-all end-all in Islam. It is the primary source. It is above any other source in Islam. But there are secondary sources, which are the hadith, which are narrations, which help basically elaborate. So for example, if the Quran is giving you some information about praying and when you should pray, it's not telling you how you should pray. So the way that Muslims pray is elaborated on within the hadith or narrations, as opposed to within the Quran itself. And there's a general principle within these hadith as well, that if there was to be any hadith that was contradictory to the Quran, then you would take the Quran as superior to the hadith itself. I know most of you who are watching this video, if you made it to this point, you already knew all these different points anyways, most likely. But for those who are new to the Quran, those who either have not read it, or even for those people who have been Muslim all their lives but just have not actually read the Quran, certain things from their own culture, they might try to superimpose on it. And unfortunately, that doesn't work so well when you're going between languages. Just wanted to go through a few of these points. I hope this helps you get a better start in towards reading the Quran. And my last major point, unrelated to these 12 different points, is that you don't want to go take all your information from everyone that's out there, trying to take a poll from all the different Muslims as if they're knowledgeable about the sources, as if they're knowledgeable about Islam, because most people who have not gone to formally study, unfortunately, it's the same no matter what religion you're in. Most people have a very mixed version of what they believe based on their culture, based on what they're learning from other people, and it just keeps getting watered down from the actual source itself. So what you do want to do is approach the scholars, approach those who are known in the community to be well learned within the religion, and not just go to every person that's out there trying to get an opinion from them on certain matters about Islam.